There is a photograph taken in the mid-1990s in the hills near Bern, Switzerland. In it, a quiet, unassuming Asian teenager in baggy jeans and a baseball cap is shooting hoops with his friends. The teachers remember him as shy, a bit awkward, obsessed with basketball. They called him the Bear because of his heavy build and the way he hovered near the kitchen. To his classmates, he was just a kid. To the world, he was a ghost. 25 years later, that bear holds the power to incinerate Seoul, level Tokyo, and strike Los Angeles with a nuclear-tipped missile. He has executed his own uncle, his half-brother, and possibly dozens of generals, sometimes with anti-aircraft guns. He survived the collapse of a summit with Donald Trump, a global pandemic and crushing sanctions. And yet the world is still asking the same question they asked when he vanished for 6 weeks in 2020. Who is Kim Jong Un? The truth is stranger than any propaganda film ever produced in Pyongyang. For decades, the West had a fixed image of the Kim family. Kim Il-sung was the mythological Sun King. Kim Jong-il was the eccentric recluse who wore platform heels and claimed to shoot 38 under par in golf. But Kim Jong-un? For 3 years after his father died in 2011, Western intelligence agencies didn't even have a clear photograph of him that they could fully verify. Let us start with the mythology, because in North Korea, history is not written by the winners. It is written by the propaganda ministry, before the winners even win. According to official state narrative, Kim Jong-un was born on the sacred mountain of Paektu on January 8, 1982. As the legend goes, a double rainbow appeared in the sky. A new star shone brightly, and a swallow, the iconic symbol of spring, was seen etching the words Kim Jong-un into the ice. This is the Yuche version of a superhero origin story. The reality is different. He was likely born in 1984. He was the third son of Kim Jong-il and his consort, Ko Yong-hui, a Japanese-born former dancer. And crucially, he was the spitting image of his grandfather, Kim Il-sung. In the Kim dynasty, looking like granddaddy is a hell of a career advantage. But here is the part of the story that sounds like a spy novel. In the mid-1990s, Kim Jong-un did not exist, at least not to us. While his older half-brother Kim Jong-nam was partying in Macau and Tokyo, he famously got caught trying to enter Japan on a fake passport to visit Disneyland. Kim Jong-un was doing his homework. Along with his mother and his younger sister, the terrifyingly powerful Kim Yo-jong, the future supreme leader was living under an assumed name in Switzerland. He used the name Pakun, or Cholpak. He was presented as the son of a North Korean embassy driver. The local kids did not know he was royalty. They knew he loved basketball. His favorite player was Michael Jordan. His favorite team was the Chicago Bulls. At night, he would go back to a luxury apartment, likely watching satellite TV and eating pizza, while 6,000 miles away, his people were dying of famine in what North Koreans call the Arduous March. This period is crucial because it shaped the enigma. Kim Jong-un is one of the only leaders of a totalitarian state who actually understands the West. He saw its abundance. He walked its streets. He knows what his people are missing. And he hates that the world thinks he is a clown. One of his classmates later recalled he was one of the shortest chubby guys. He liked to eat. He returned to Pyongyang around the year 2000. Suddenly, the fat boy from Switzerland had to become a general. He attended the Kim Il-sung Military University, but there are no records of him actually performing military service. It was a crash course in tyranny, a condensed education in absolute power. The moment the Ghost Prince became the heir arrived in 2008. Kim Jong-il suffered a massive stroke. The old man was dying, and he knew that his eldest son, Jong-nam, was too Western, too soft. The second son, Jong-chol, was reportedly too girly and never had the stomach for power. So the baton, the nuclear button, was passed to the 24-year-old third son. Suddenly, the kid who just wanted to play NBA video games was thrust into the center of a starving nuclear state. He grew his hair out to look like his grandpa. He gained weight to look like his grandpa. He developed the waddle, that strange rolling gait where his torso stays perfectly still while his feet move. That was not a medical condition. It was an imitation of Kim Il-sung. December 17, 2011. Kim Jong-il died of a heart attack on a train. The world held its breath. The assumption was that the regime would collapse. that the generals would eat the young boy alive. Instead, Kim Jong Un did the one thing no one expected. He moved faster than his father. Within weeks, he pulled off what might be called Operation Thunderbolt. He purged the military leadership, replacing old guard loyalists with men in their 40s and 50s who owed everything to him. But it was his uncle, Jang Song-taek, the husband of his father's sister, who proved that he was no child. Jang was the regent. He was the number 2 man in the country. He was the grown-up in the room, the man who did business with China and kept the money flowing. And Kim Jong Un killed him. But here is where the history becomes unbelievable. You do not simply shoot an uncle. You destroy him retroactively. In December 2013, state television aired Jang's trial. He was dragged before a military tribunal, a piece of tape over his mouth, his body shaking. They accused him of despicable political impurity. But the execution itself was something else entirely. According to South Korean intelligence, Jang Song-taek was executed by anti-aircraft fire, a 14.5mm caliber gun fired into him while his hands and feet were tied. Why? Because a bullet is personal. A man with a gun can hesitate. Anti-aircraft fire is impersonal. It is a message. Kim Jong Un was not just killing his rivals. He was filming snuff films to send to the elite via flash drive. This is what happens if you challenge the Paek-2 bloodline. But the uncle was just the warm-up. The assassination of the half-brother reads like a Christopher Nolan plot. Kim Jong-nam, the man who was once the heir, lived in exile, mostly in Macau. He spoke out against the regime, albeit quietly. He told journalists he wanted to live a normal life. On February 13, 2017, Kim Jong-nam was walking through Kuala Lumpur International Airport in Malaysia. He was about to check in for a flight to Macau. Suddenly, 2 women approached him. One, later identified as a Vietnamese actress named Dawn Thi Huong, put her hands over his face. Another, an Indonesian named Siti Aisyah, sprayed him with something. The something was not a gun. It was not a bomb. It was VX nerve agent, classified as a weapon of mass destruction by the United Nations, listed alongside sarin gas. It is so toxic that the women who attacked him were immediately rushed to the hospital vomiting. Kim Jong-nam staggered to the medical desk. He said, "I have been sprayed with a liquid. It is very painful. I am dying." 20 minutes later, his brain was gone. He was dead. The world was horrified, not just because of the murder of a defenseless man in an airport, but because of the audacity. Kim Jong Un had just assassinated his own brother on foreign soil using a chemical weapon. Why to send a message to the exiles and to the elites back home? There is no hiding. There is no safety. I can reach you anywhere. By 2017, baby Kim was gone. The world now faced Rocket Man. That nickname, coined by Donald Trump, was meant to belittle him. But in Pyongyang, it was a badge of honor. Why does this man care so much about missiles? He is a heavy man who likes cheese and cigarettes. Does he really want to turn Seoul into a sea of fire? Yes, or at least he needs you to believe he does. Here is the strategic genius of Kim Jong-un that most Western media misses. He watched what happened to Saddam Hussein. He watched what happened to Muammar Gaddafi. Gaddafi gave up his nuclear program, smiled at the West, and a few years later, he was dragged out of a drainage pipe and murdered with a bayonet. Kim Jong-un looked at his anemic economy, his starving army, his subsidized housing, and he said, "The only thing that protects this family is the bomb." And he went all in. In July 2017, the Hwasong-14 launched. Analysts scrambled to calculate the trajectory. It could reach Alaska. In November 2017, the Hwasong-15 launched. It could reach the entire continental United States. At the United Nations, Donald Trump said, "We will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea." In Pyongyang, Kim Jong-un responded in his military coat, "I will tame the United States imperialists with fire." We were closer to nuclear war in 2017 than we have been since the Cuban Missile Crisis. B-2 bombers were conducting practice runs. The Max Thunder drills were happening. And then something shifted. How did the world go from fire and fury to we fell in love? In 2018, Moon Jae-in, the South Korean president, played the greatest game of telephone in history. He acted as the middleman between the bunker in Pyongyang and the White House. On June 12, 2018 in Singapore, an American president met the leader of North Korea for the first time. It was pure theater. Watch the tape of the handshake. Trump walked out first, commanding the full stage. Kim walked toward him. As they shook hands, Kim looked Trump directly in the eye. He did not blink. He did not offer a weak smile. He had the confidence of a man who knew he had 20 nuclear warheads in his basement. This was not a surrender. It was a coronation. Kim Jong Un, by simply showing up, had done what no other North Korean leader had done. He had sat on the world stage as an equal to the President of the United States. The love affair was short-lived. The Hanoi summit collapsed because Kim wanted sanctions relief for shutting down a single research facility, while Trump demanded an all-in approach. Kim walked away. And he learned a valuable lesson. Trump wanted a show, not a war. The American president was a businessman who valued spectacle over substance. That was a weakness Kim Jong Un would remember. Then the world shut down. And Kim Jong Un did what he does best. He disappeared. For 6 weeks in 2020, he vanished. Rumors swirled. Was he in a coma? Was he dead? Was his sister in charge? When he finally reappeared, he looked different. But he had survived. And he had used the pandemic not just to seal his borders, but to seal his soul. He stopped playing nice with the world. He stopped the summits. Then something strange happened. In 2023, a young girl stepped onto the scene. Her name was Ju-ai, and she was his daughter, believed to be around 12 or 13 years old. She wore tailored coats. She sat next to her father at missile test launch sites. She held his hand. Why show the daughter? In the West, many thought it was merely cute. Father-daughter day at the ICBM launch. But in Pyongyang, this was nothing short of a constitutional revolution. The Kim dynasty is deeply Confucian. It is patriarchal. It has always been the dear father. Seniority is everything. If Kim was bringing his daughter out, not his son, it told the world several terrifying things. First, he had no viable son or his son was sick. Second, he intended for a matriarchy to rule the nuclear state. Third, he was preparing the regime for his own death. State media released footage of Kim and Ju-ai petting fluffy Pungsan dogs and Shih Tzus. On the same day, they released threats to annihilate their enemies. This is the duality of Kim Jong Un. He is a brutal tyrant, but he wants to be seen as a normal father. But you cannot feed a nation on puppy videos. According to recent intelligence, the North Korean won has collapsed. In 2024, the exchange rate was 8,000 won to the dollar. By 2026, it was hovering at 36,000 won to the dollar. Inflation on rice, the staple of the regime, doubled, then doubled again. Kim Jong Un has a problem that missiles cannot solve. His people are hungry and his money is worthless. Normally, a dictator resorts to purges, and sure enough, there were reports in 2025 and early 2026 of officials being executed for anti-party behavior. But the scale was different now. Kim Jong Un was being forced to implement capitalist reforms just to keep the lights on. The regime began piloting a program where farmers were paid in cash rather than state rations. For a communist dynasty, this was heresy. Why were they doing it? Because the state was bankrupt. The regime had been funding its nuclear program through crypto hacking and money laundering. But even the Lazarus Group's billions were not enough to buy rice for 25 million people. So the fat man sat in Pyongyang. He had the bomb. He had the satellite. But his people were trading their furniture for a bag of corn. The regime was not stable. It was a powder keg. Where does this leave us? Kim Jong Un is now approximately 42 years old. He is in his physical prime, though his health is rumored to be fragile due to his weight and lifestyle. He has utilized his sister, Kim Yo-jong, as the attack dog against the South, threatening Seoul with total destruction. The history of Kim Jong Un is a history of theatrical violence. He did not simply inherit a country. He inherited a death cult. The Paek-2 bloodline demands that he be perfect, godlike, infallible. That pressure has turned him into a monster. He killed his brother in an airport because his brother was a threat to the narrative. He kills generals for falling asleep in meetings. He uses anti-aircraft guns on his own family. But the unbelievable part is not the cruelty. We have seen cruelty before. The unbelievable part is the survival. In 2011, everyone thought the Hermit Kingdom would die. In 2017, everyone thought Trump would bomb him. In 2020, Everyone thought COVID would tear his regime apart. He is still here. He is a man who saw the gluttony of Switzerland and chose the isolation of North Korea. He is a man who has presided over the most brutal period of political executions in the DPRK's history, yet is celebrated by his propaganda machine as the father of the people. He is living proof that in the 21st century, if you have a nuclear weapon, you can get away with almost anything. The question is not whether he is crazy. The question is what happens when the health of this one man finally fails. Can a dynasty built on the quicksand of starvation and fear possibly survive the transition to a teenage daughter? Or will the unbelievable history of Kim Jong Un end not with a bang but with the slow collapse of the one, the creeping hunger of a people who have nothing left to lose, and the silence of a train that never arrives? We will be watching. But for now the story continues, written in missile launches and empty markets. In the eyes of a daughter who may one day inherit a nuclear sword, hand in the waddle of a fat boy from Switzerland who decided that the world would know his name. Whether he will be remembered as a god or a monster depends entirely on who survives him.